Hello everybody and welcome to Mondoid, your one-stop shop for all things Project Zomboid, and this week, feeling fine, it's 29. A decent blog post, that's weird, a decent blog post that is talking about a few features coming into the game that we have speculated about or heard about, but now we have a little bit more detail on them, so without further ado, let's dive in. So there's three main features of this blog that we could talk about. There is the new scavenge skill that they're talking about, new melee skills, and other stuff. We're going to start with the scavenging skill. Now, the idea in this game is obviously to survive and scavenge for as long as you can, but really, the restriction starts to come, especially in multiplayer servers, when those buildings are no longer scavengeable. There are berries and stuff limited within the forest itself, and of course you can farm, but what happens later on when you enter a server, for instance, that has no loot respawn on, and has been looted to hell, and you can't even find yourself a packet of seeds to get some sort of farming going? Well, then you just wither away and die. There's nothing you can do about it. But they're looking to rectify this. This new skill is basically primarily for multiplayer. As single player, you really won't have to worry about it too much, though it still will be worth something rather, in single player because of the restrictions you can put on yourself. So basically what they're saying is there will be a scavenge skill where you are able to go out into the woods and scavenge things like berries, like logs, like twigs, like stones and stuff over time to give yourself the ability to survive out in the wild. Now, they say scavenging won't be unlimited, so it's not going to be overpowered. How are they going to limit that? Well, it's basically going to be there to help you within the first few days or maybe months. But once you've looted out a forest zone, as you can read right here, you'll have to move on to another to do further scavenging and wait for the previous one to replenish. Seeing as it's a new skill, too, better scavengers will be able to get better loot and in greater quantities. Are you ready to eat a handful of bugs? I'm not. So basically the idea is after you scavenge an area, you can't just scavenge it forever. The forest will run out of resources eventually. You need to move on and wait for everything to regrow before you can survive off that part of the land again. And if you are a really good scavenger, if that skill is maximized, I can imagine instead of finding one or two berries, you find like a bushel of berries. Again, just kind of leveraging that whole, this guy has been living in the forest, he has a high scavenger skill because he basically, this is all he knows, as opposed to a guy who comes from the city and starts picking berries, and that's all he doesn't know if a berry's good or bad. There's obviously going to be a great contrast, a great difference between the two in-game, and that is going to be represented with the scavenger skill leveling mechanic. Other things coming along the line, melee skills revamp. This is something that we've talked about a little bit, and this kind of goes hand in hand with the new animations coming. But we knew the melee skill was going to be revamped in some way, and this is what they're talking about right now. So they've also been working on a little melee skills revamp, which will provide new skills to help you face the Horde and or dragons. Blunt and Blade will each have 3 subsidiary skills: Accuracy, Guard, and Maintenancy. Accuracy will influence hit chance and damage. Guard will help you avoid scratches while you're wielding the weapon, and Maintenance will reduce the rate at which your weapon loses condition. And nope, Spiffo plushies aren't weapons. So this is adding a bit more depth to what is overall a relatively simple system. I really like the idea of having a guard chance added to a weapon. I think that's the thing that kind of draws me in the most, because accuracy is already kind of in the game. You usually hit your enemy, but it's not necessarily like damaging massively. So, and especially when you're panic induced and stuff, you're not doing as much damage as you could be doing. But generally speaking, that's already kind of in the game. But the guard subsidiary skill is really attractive to me, because that means if I've been, my character who I'm currently playing with has like a 3 out of 5 in his axe skill. I'm curious, I wonder if it's a passive skill or an active skill you have to level up. But I can imagine having putting points into guard merely because I play a little bit more quote-unquote reckless. So having that axe in my hand and having points in the scavenging, in the guard skill, I'm more apt to, in-game knock a zombie away. Now, obviously, it won't be represented with an animation or anything, but the chance of not being scratched is higher, so I can picture my character pushing a zombie away last minute, that kind of thing. And maintenance is also, too, so the better I get at wielding an axe, the less likely it's going to break very easily. I like it a lot. That's really cool. And then the last stuff is other stuff. Now, there's only one real thing I want to talk about here. There's a bunch of stuff they do talk about, but one in particular thing that I'm actually very excited for, and that's something that I've been talking about a lot. I've probably talked about over the past year through my series, and that is the idea of my character constantly being panicked no matter how long he lives within the zombie apocalypse. That is going to be changed, which is awesome. The longer a survivor survives, the less easily scared that survivor becomes. So panic levels will decrease faster if you have survived for a while within the zombie apocalypse. Thank freaking God. It only makes sense. Now, the pop-up scares and everything, I've also talked about this in my videos, should still exist. Like, you open a door and you don't expect a zombie to be there. Panic shoots to the top very quickly. That makes sense, and I know I've spoken about that in the past in one of my bajillion episodes of Zomboid, so I'm really happy that's something they're going to be bringing in. But the idea of just being able to see zombies down the street and understanding how they work, you've killed like thousands of them, you know, you shouldn't get as panicked as you currently do within the game. And to see that they are addressing that feature and that's something that's going to be implemented and changed a bit in the future is great. I'm super, super happy about that because as it stands, doesn't really make sense. Again, you could chalk it up to alpha or early access, whatever you want to call this game. But I'm happy to see that being changed. And those are like the three main things I wanted to talk about. There's some other things here you could go read and you could get a little bit more in depth of an overview, and I would highly suggest that you do over at projectzomboid.com. But build 29 is seemingly going to be pretty freaking cool, and maybe gives me a bit of a spark to kind of jump back into the game hardcore and try and live in the woods maybe. We'll see. We'll see. I can't say one way or another. Either way, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're one of those once-a-weekers, I will see you next week. If you're a regular, I will see you later today. And as always, I will see all of you next time. Bye-bye.